What's it all about? Why are we here? Is there a God? What happens when we die? In this series, I'm talking to public figures about these questions. Like me, none of them claims to be a religious expert, but all of them have, at times, had cause to think about the meaning of life. Hello, welcome, and thank you for joining us. And our guest this time is Ruby Wax, comedy writer, fearless interviewer, and more recently, prominent lecturer and writer on the subject of mental health. Ruby, thank you for taking time.
Thanks for having me come.
Now, Evanston, Illinois was the place of your birth, to a Jewish couple called Edward and Bertha, who in turn had been very lucky indeed to get out of Austria just in time in 1939. And you're on record as saying that the happiest times of your childhood were the 2 months you spent every year in summer camp.
Right.
Which seems to indicate that home was not all that happy. Speak to me about that.
Well, I think when you're a baby, you don't know any better. It was madness in my house. But again, I'm the only child. I couldn't really compare it. But I started to realize other people's parents didn't run into the streets screaming like wild animals in their nightgowns and throwing me out of the car while my mother was still driving because I wouldn't go to dance class. We didn't speak English, we spoke German, and they read to me from Grimm's fairy tales. So finally, when I was about 8, they sent me to summer camp, which was paradise. For 2 months, I got away from them. And I met normal people, and I learned the spirit of competition, and that if you were losing, you shouldn't be afraid to use a handgun. This was the American ethos, black and white. For my team, which was the Blues, won't mean anything to you, but think of it as the Americans versus Vietnam. But we would do canoe races, we would do capture the flag, we would, we did use weapons.
All the things
All the things girls do, yeah. And then the parents would come on the weekend. They'd all arrive in Cadillacs. We could never tell which parents were, who belonged to who. They all looked the same. And they would scream like animals as they watched their child, blowing a ping pong ball across the field. Very ambitious parents, and it gave us a spirit of competition.
Why did your parents come running in the street in their night attire?
Well, they were highly fueled with mental illness. Of course, we didn't know those words at the time. Now, probably my mother would be sectioned. My friends thought it was unusual that she would be up there cleaning the ceiling with a wet wipe. Also things like we'd have to not put garbage in our house. We'd have to wrap it up and take it somewhere else, even though we had a garbage can. Many trainings that are quite useful today.
But your mother was a very beautiful woman.
Very beautiful.
And very clever. She had 7 or 8 languages.
Yes.
Did she ever use those gifts for anything?
Only to instruct some cleaning methods.
And your father shouted a lot?
They both shouted. They both had very fierce Austrian accents.
And why was this unhappiness in them? With your psychology later on, looking back on it...
Yeah, I can't.
You can't figure it out? I
can't figure it out. You can blame it on the war, whatever, but I've met Holocaust survivors that have an enchanting personality. Maybe displacement is upsetting because my mother was quite the it girl. I see pictures of her looking spectacular on mountains with Italian soldiers in ski resorts. And so I guess in the midst of that, to be cut, and she was very intellectual and had to leave her country and then go work in a factory in America with cowboys and Indians, wasn't her idea of a good time.
And did they not lose most of their family in the Holocaust?
Well, they never mentioned it. I don't know if they did.
They never mentioned it?
Never mentioned it. I just assumed I had no relatives. And I'd say, well, Mommy, wasn't there somebody in Austria? Nothing, everything is fine. And when they finally died, I went into the attic and there was a suitcase. And when I opened it up, and they were, one was a letter from, must have been an aunt, and she said, please help us get out of Austria. My son Max and my husband, we're stuck here. So I thought my mother never mentioned it because they didn't do anything. But then the next letter came, and the woman said, thank you so much for sending us the papers. We can get out. Really, God bless you. And then the third letter was, we can't get out, so our son Max is here. Meanwhile, I have a son Max. It was never mentioned. So it was all secret. It was all secret. It was never mentioned. They assumed when I made a film about how mad they were, and my mother did the famous scene in Miami Memoirs. It was the first documentary. Nobody believed me about my parents. And there she was on all fours, sponges in both hands, on a shag-piled carpet behind me because she wanted me to take a shower outside of our apartment, even though we had a shower, but wasn't allowed to use it. And she chased me, going from the ground, "Civilized people don't bring sand in a building." And she did 4 takes because she thought the film was about how crazy I was. Yep.
How about that?
My aunt, who I loved, she always thought I was making it up until one night my father said, so we were in South America, because we went to South America, and she was late, so we left her, which meant we were in Chile. Okay, I was late to meet them, as I always was, because I was swimming with my, inner tube, and they left a note at the lobby saying, "We have left for the airport with $16. Good luck." I was 12. That's when Harriet said, "I now know you're not making it up."
What did you do?
I got a taxi. I got to the airport in my swimsuit. That's survival.
Was it a very religious household?
No, not at all.
Not at all?
No, not at all. I mean, we had a Christmas tree, which I insisted on, but we weren't religious at all. I wasn't that interested in the Jewish religion.
And what was the story they told you for Christmas then?
Well, the whole Jesus
the
saga.
Gentiles
Yeah,
story.
And that you get a gift. I really didn't get into the detail.
That's all you needed to know.
That's all I needed. There was a gift item at the end.
So, meeting you down through the years, I've always seen you as, most of the public would have seen you as a cheerful, jolly, happy, wisecracking person and so on. So I would imagine that you were the head girl in school, or the most popular girl, and the ringleader of all the gags. Yes? No?
No, I was very unpopular.
Why?
I was a very dark kid. And you can see, when I look at pictures, I look haunted and frightening. It was.
So you were different.
I was different. I was weird. And then when weird became popular, I then was the it girl.
Okay, now I've interviewed Eckhart Tolle of The Power of Now on this series, and he told us that he had an unhappy childhood as well, and he always plotted and planned to run away from home. But he never summoned up enough courage to do so. In the end, he plotted and planned it, but he didn't do it.
Because he was now, wasn't he? Got stuck in the now.
Indeed.
See the problems?
You ran away.
Yeah.
Where to, when, how? How did you do it?
Well, when I was around 16, that's when I became the it girl. And I'd hitchhike from private airports and go to San Francisco. I told my parents I was just sleeping over at a friend's house. I wasn't sexually wild. I was in my mind free. So I would get, now you'd be murdered, but I would go to private airports and say, "Where are you going?" And they'd say San Francisco or whatever, and I'd say, "Can I come?" You could do that then. Or I snuck on a few airliners saying I was looking for my mother and just sat down. I was audacious.
And how did you live?
Who knew how I lived? People would say, "You want to stay at my house?" You'd crash on their floor. Those were the days where you would be taken care of. Really, you didn't need money. You needed chutzpah, and I had that.
And what was the parents' reaction to this?
They tried to murder me, but they tried to murder me because I left, some crumbs on the floor, so what's new? I said I was just going for a little while. And they said, if you make it to Israel, suddenly we'll pay for your return. So I hitchhiked with my friend through Europe. I said I was only going for the summer, but I never went back. Coming to London, finally, when I went to RADA, I did the worst rendition of Juliet that on the face of the earth. I wanted to get myself in the mood. I actually stood on stage going, "My dog is dead. My dog is dead. My dog is dead." And when I finally had the tears, I began Juliet's speech, and it got really bad. Really bad. I ended up on the floor. Incomprehensible. And then when they said, "You didn't get in," I said, "Are you sure my name is on the list?" And they went, "We're sure."
Incidentally, did you ever have a dog?
Lumpy? Yes, I did. And my mother taught him to say, "Heil Hitler," for parties. So she'd go, "Lumpy, say Heil Hitler." And the dog would go like this. No laughs.
Disgraceful. Anyway, to pick up the narrative, if I may, I'm half disbelieving what I'm hearing. But
I
anyway,
might be making it up. I honestly...
No, you're not.
Okay.
No. It's too horrific. No. You made it to Berkeley and San Fran. You studied psychology. And you did get into the Scottish Academy of Music and Drama, and you did get into the Royal Shakespeare Company.
Okay, that's quantum leaps. I did get into the Scottish Academy. At that point, nobody wanted to go there. I tried for every drama school. I don't know if you know what Glasgow looked like in the 70s.
No.
You couldn't see it. It was an ashtray. There was no food except fried Mars bars. People just passed out in the streets and left their corpses. Those were usually my biggest fans. It was a dump. So nobody wanted to go there.
Right.
I got in because I was standing and had breath and a pulse. And then I won the gold medal. And then went on to the Royal Shakespeare Company.
In Stratford?
Yeah.
And was it Alan Rickman who told you to stop acting?
Everybody
and take up
did.
The right
Everybody did. I got on stage in the Royal Shakespeare Company, and literally I was pelted with pieces of paper from Richard Griffith, Jonathan Pryce, David Suchet, Zoe Wanamaker, cast is endless, saying, please do not even think of acting.
So you took Alan Rickman's advice, amongst all the others, and you started writing.
Yeah.
And you worked with French and Saunders, and you became a leading comic performer on television and all of that. Did your parents figure in this in any way, shape or form?
They thought it was a mistake.
Yes, because they wanted you to marry a nice boy and have 4 children.
They gave up on that.
Oh,
they gave up on
long.
There was never anybody.
I see. Okay, so the point is that by the end of the 80s, you had your own TV show, and throughout the 90s, you were a major TV celebrity interviewer. What I wanted to ask you was that method of interviewing that you used, jolly jokes, keep them laughing, keep them amused, and behind that, getting in onto them so that they said things that they would never have said to you if you were po-faced about the whole thing. Did you devise that, or did that come upon you, or was that put upon you, or how did that happen? And did you realize it was a new thing?
No, I just thought that's how people converse. I was never trying to get the dirt. I'm not a tabloid writer. I really just want to know their story. And also, I said at the end, is there anything you want me to cut out? Otherwise, you wouldn't have a career for 25 years. So I'm with Bette Midler, and we're in the fish section of Harrods. And I'm keeping her busy, and then I say to her, will you sing to me down the escalator? And she says no, but then I'd make her laugh until it was so crazy. She did sing down the elevator because she wants to have fun. You just have to find the key.
When you've got that level of fame, now you've arrived, you're known in the streets, you're hailed by people, hello, Ruby, did that satisfy your craving for approval and acceptance? Missing all those years with your
I can't remember.
You can't remember.
I can't remember. I think you're in a bubble of you're in a high, but not necessarily about yourself. But I think it's exciting when everybody looks at you and feeds you biscuits. And then you get infantilized because people start to say, it's love. They get in hushed tones and they give you free moisturizer and it's lovely, lovely. Everything's lovely. You start to believe, well, maybe I am that lovely, but underneath, you're not.
They almost treat you with reverence.
They also hate you.
They also hate you?
Yeah, I think under all, admiration is somebody waiting for your downfall. Yeah, you could see it in Hello magazine. I always say, I used to look at the pictures and go, die.
Die.
Die. Die. Maybe it's just me.
Let me introduce the subject of this chap called Ed Bye, a television BBC
I know the name.
Producer and director. I want to know where you met, how you met, in what circumstances, and was it an instant boom or was it a slow drift?
So Ed was our director. He was harmless. I thought, I tried to get him fired. He seemed kind of weak. And then, because it was so late in the day, I started to find Ed more and more attractive. I guess the insides were starting to say, last egg rolling down. And then the rest is history.
What do you mean the rest is history? Did he get the message that you were interested in?
Not really. On the last night party, he was with a secretary or something, and Dawn French went over to her and just had her removed. We've never seen the secretary again. That's how quick Ed said, one moment there, gone.
So was he Jewish?
No.
No. Well, so how long afterwards were you married?
Then I said to him, I have a lot of proposals. I could marry you in April. I have some room, but you better get in there fast. It was like selling a house. I said, because there's many other people lined up. So book now or you're off the list. So he said, okay. And April came. It was a registry office. And down the aisle, 5 feet, I told him, A, how old I really was, B, that I had been married before, and C, that I was mentally ill. And he had no time to bolt.
Has that worked out very well and lovely? And
well, it's still going.
Yes.
And all of my other friends are divorced 80 times. And I do really like him.
You do really like him?
I do really like him.
But that's a very fundamental value in itself. Yeah. And in due course, along came the 3 M's, Max and Madeline and Marina.
Yeah.
Is there something going on here with the letter M?
No, I just didn't have time to think about it.
So in what way did your way of raising those children differ from the way your darling mother raised you, may one ask?
Okay, you know the difference between color and black and white? Yeah. That would be the difference. There is no similarity at all.
Right. Expand on that.
Well, I married Ed because I knew he'd be a great mother, and he was tall. So he was very maternal and could fill in the blanks where I couldn't. I have the patience to read books at night.
You didn't?
No. And also I did bad readings. I don't do good cold readings, so they'd go, just don't bother. I didn't pass the audition when I read the Twinkle Tones. They said, just cut it now and get out.
Even as kids?
Even as kids, they went, please stop now. We can't listen to the spider story.
Get the guy.
Get out of here.
Get the guy again.
Get your understudy, okay, because this really sucks.
So how, come back to me for a moment, how can you tell that a man is going to be motherly and look after his children and read to them?
He has a sweetness. He's very sweet. And he's warm. He's everything I've never been, and he's patient. My God, he waits for things. So that's why they've ended up normal. I give it all to Ed.
And you didn't bring them up religious at all? In any way?
No.
God was never mentioned in the household?
Maybe when I was swearing.
So at what point did you go into one of your major depressions?
I can't really tell. Probably when I was young, but nobody knew the name of it.
Is it a recurrent thing?
Yeah, but once every 3 to 5 years. That's why it's difficult to track. And then when Marina was born, then something serious was going on. And just before she was born, a guy said, you have clinical depression. And it was such a relief because it's more frightening to not have a diagnosis than to have a diagnosis. I've met people in my audience who 3 times who said, I've had cancer and depression. And I said, which one's worse? And 2 of them said, with the cancer, I just wanted to live. With the depression, I just wanted to die.
You published Sane New World, Taming of the Mind in 2013. You then went back to stand-up shows and you regularly spoke on mental health issues. But you happened to work in gags with the lecture on mental health and you invite questions from the audience.
In the second half.
Yes.
And I decided I'd do a show about mental illness. But in order to make sure it was funny, and funny in the right way, I went to mental institutions for 2 years. To go in a smoking room in an institution is the greatest conversation you'll ever hear in your life. You've never interviewed anybody about this stuff. You've never gone to those depths. It's magnificent. It's the best humans can be.
Your father died in 2003, your mother died in 2008. Were you reconciled to them before they died?
Never.
No.
Oh, no, they never looked. We didn't have that scene where my dad said, I'm so sorry, sweetheart, I made some mistakes. And I go, that's okay, Daddy. And then we'd hug and there'd be a rainbow. Didn't happen, but something very weird happened. When I took care of them for 5 years, they were both kind of in a coma, and I give them hot and cold running nurses. So in the end, this is the weirdest thing. Again, I think my life is very strange. He hadn't spoken. They gave him the test. There's flatline. There's no brain activity. And my dad said, I love you. And we do not know how that happened.
And do you think he looked at you when you said
I don't
that?
think so. I don't know where it came from.
Just, I love you.
That was it, after 5 years.
Okay, we take you now to the point where you're a patron of the British Neuroscience Association, and of course you recently got the OBE for your services to mental health in the UK. I know you're deeply interested in helping people find better mental health, but what about the spiritual life? Do you have a spiritual life?
Well, before we go to spiritual,
yeah, okay.
I wanted to find a way that I could maybe not heal myself, but so that I could kind of understand the inner landscape of my mind. If I can understand what goes on in the brain, I would have a really concise answer as to the meaning of my life.
And are you getting closer to that?
There is no one-shop answer, okay? There's no black box for after the plane crash that has the recording that... the fact is that there are a trillion things going on in this brain that took all this time to evolve that we're not conscious of. The fact that this is so complex means that we'll never get to the root of it.
Okay, smart gal.
No, I'm just fascinated with this stuff.
No, this is a different subject, smart gal. God.
Nothing. I got no opinion.
When you encounter people, as no doubt you do, who have a deep, deep faith in God, do you look upon those people with derision, contempt?
No, envy. I envy them.
You envy them?
Yes, I do.
Why do you envy?
Well, I think if you have a belief that's so concrete and so evokes such devotion out of you, that really gives you a mission in your life. You know when the holidays are, you know what to do. Ritual is the greatest gift God ever gave us. But I'm making it up as I go along. I'm in chaos. I'm trying to find some form in the chaos. So I study science. There is such a thing called neuroplasticity, which is that we can change. You can change the wiring. You can change even the genetic imprint. And that gives me hope, is that I'm not stuck with who I was born as.
But what I'm getting from you is total blank. Doesn't play a part in your life, good, bad, or indifferent.
No.
Could you even imagine yourself if you were in a tight corner or one of the children was sick and dying? Could you ever imagine yourself offering a prayer to...
Yes, I could.
Oh.
Oh, I mean, I would also, I also wear red underclothing, before I go on a show.
Do you?
Yeah.
Why would you do that?
It's a luck thing. It's an OCD thing. It makes me feel safer. So I have little rituals.
Red underwear.
Yes. Gay.
That's
Thanks
nice.
for asking.
That's nice to know. I didn't ask actually, but
no.
anyway,
But let's separate that from God, okay?
Yes, I'm trying to.
Okay.
You've puzzled me again.
Okay.
You see, you keep on flinging these hand grenades.
I know, I'm swerving.
Yes. So, God.
Yeah. I admire somebody who believes in him. I would like to, but I have a practical side. I don't believe in star signs. I don't believe in waving wands. I don't believe in angel cards. I need to see the meat. I just need, carve open your brain, let me see.
What do you think happens when we die, Ruby?
We die. Oh, I'd love to believe that too. I love all these people that say, I used to be Cleopatra. Somebody told me, it's in my show, that I was a window cleaner in 1492.
You were?
Yeah. Shirley MacLaine is Nefertiti and I'm a window cleaner. Again, I'm envious. I'm envious of people. I'd like to think I'm coming back.
You'd like to think you're coming back?
Oh, yeah, I don't want to go.
Do you pray?
No.
No.
But I meditate.
Every day?
Every day, and when I'm, let's say, waiting to go on stage, I'm just setting my focus to my breathing or something, and I know that my heartbeat goes down and my adrenaline goes down, otherwise I wouldn't be able to perform.
Is a lot of this contained in a mindfulness guide for the frazzled?
A mindfulness guide for the frazzled.
Yes.
That's my book coming out.
That's your book. I mean, is a lot of what
January.
you're saying to me included in that?
Yeah, but I've stolen all the science. You can incorporate it into your real life. You can have road rage and still practice mindfulness so that you can drive the engine rather than it driving you.
What is, for Ruby Wax, the meaning of life?
I don't think there's meaning, but the point of it, for me, is to sometimes be able to be present enough, not happy, but completely aware that I'm looking at you, you're listening to me. When I want to see my kids, I can focus rather than their entire childhood I was on a telephone. I have no memory at all. So for this 1 second of our contact. When I could actually feel that you're listening, to me, that's the point of life.
Last question. Suppose there is a God and suppose he's waiting for you at the pearly gate when you die, Ruby, and you come face to face with him and he says, oh, Ruby Wanks, huh? What will you say to God?
I'd say, why didn't you tell me earlier what I know now? No, let me think. Life is full of surprises, so maybe death is too. I don't know what I'd say.
That's not bad. Why didn't you tell me earlier what I should have known?
I say to God, I mean, I'd say, I'm sorry I got you wrong. I was arrogant. I was beyond my station. I talked too much, and please, I don't know, punish me now, because I've made a terrible, terrible mistake.
I'm telling you now that confronted by that, God will say to you, Ruby, you're welcome, my darling.
Do you swear?
No.
Okay.
But
this is good enough.
Thank you for
I'd then try to sell him my book.
No.
A new chat show captures the stories, life lessons and wisdom of women this Thursday on The Couch with Yvonne Tiernan at 10:15. Next up this evening, The Week in Politics.